Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Almost 50 years ago, the Supreme Court incorrectly decided that the right to end an unborn child's life existed in the U.S. Constitution. On that day, the United States became one of only 6 countries that allow abortion on demand throughout the entirety of pregnancy, putting us in the same category as communist China and North Korea. Now, almost 50 years later, we might be on the precipice of the court correcting their egregious mistake. Unfortunately, due to the actions of a rogue actor, with no regard for the laws or institutions of our country, justices must withstand attempts to dissuade them from changing that ruling. Inexcusably, those attempts to intimidate the High Court's opinion have even turned violent. In fact, since that rogue actor, who I believe broke the law and should be held accountable to the full extent of the law, leaked Justice Alito's draft opinion on Dobbs v. Jackson, a fence had to be constructed outside the court to prevent attempts from left-wing agitators to burn it down, quote unquote. There was also a reported attempt to assassinate Justice Kavanaugh, which was thankfully foiled by our brave law enforcement officers. As we are all surely aware, anti-life demonstrators have held protests for weeks outside the homes of Justice Clarence Thomas, Amy Coney Barrett, and Brett Kavanaugh, which is a direct violation of 18 U.S. Code Section 1507. Instead of breaking up these illegal demonstrations and putting an end to the intimidation and mob rule so prevalent on the left these days, President Biden's Justice Department has allowed them to proceed unabated. This, in my mind, sounds like an endorsement of lawlessness, or at least a two-tiered justice system. This administration doesn't seem interested in enforcing laws that aren't politically expedient, whether it's at the southern border or elsewhere. Mr. Speaker, it's no secret. I am 100% pro-life. I signed an amicus brief in support of overturning Roe v. Wade, and I remain hopeful that the Supreme Court will indeed finally overturn it. The number of lives lost since Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided is truly unfathomable. Countless lives have been lost that will never be granted the privilege to walk on God's earth with those listening to this speech today. For years we have prayed, and finally those prayers may potentially be answered. If so, that does not mean our work is done. While the power to legislate with regard to abortion policy will be returned to the legislative bodies where our founders intended such power to reside, much work remains at every level of government, state, local, and federal, to ensure progressives don't pass legislation that provides for taxpayer-funded abortions, something that polls show 58% of Americans do not support. I promise to work day in and day out to ensure that every child is guaranteed the same right to life we all enjoy today. I will be a voice for the voiceless throughout the remaining time that I have in Congress, and even well after, much like my time before I arrived here in Washington. Because after all, if there is no life, there is no liberty or pursuit of happiness. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.